like to leave you with is that I have known her to be a very kind woman and to also be a very genuine woman. And I'm very honored and proud to present her to you.
Before I speak, if we could just have just 1 minute of silence, just to commune with our Creator. Just 1 minute. Pray for the Vaughn family who lost their loved one, and pray for me and the protesters. So I'm praying for them.
Yes.
And just pray for me. So let's just take a few minutes.
Amen.
Amen. And I want to thank you, ABC Church. This morning, I miss going to my own church, but I grew up in a church similar to this in the Crenshaw district, and I miss church because I just wanted to be rested and prepared for you today and to give you my best. But when I got in here, you guys were having church, so thank you very much for coming to me this morning with all your worship songs. And thank you for inviting me to celebrate our Black History Month. I would also like to thank Pastor George Van Alstyne for his invitation to be here, as well as Deputy District Attorney Kathy Cady, as well as Paul Yvonne for putting this together in the midst of her grief. I have several friends who came with me today. Sister Christine and her friends from the convent are here, and over to the left I've got a group of friends who I haven't seen in a long time. I kind of feel like the Holy Spirit led you to come here because we just happened to get in touch and they heard about me speaking and they said we're going to be there. So thank you all who came to this celebration. So we're celebrating Black History Month because of others before us.
Yes, right.
They were determined to answer the question, can we make a difference in the affirmative? They understood their actions would impact not only those around us, but generations to come. In fact, historian Carter G. Woodson was the creator of what we presently know as Black History Month. He worked passionately to establish this event in an effort to provide an education on the origins, struggles, and achievements of African Americans in the United States history. At a time when African Americans were being shunned and polarized in our country, he undoubtedly questioned his ability to contribute to the greater good. Yet over 40 years later, we are still celebrating this particular type of service that this man's legacy has left. There are certain characteristics that are readily identifiable when we think about an individual who is determined to be a change agent. Change agents are those people who others look to for guidance and wisdom. People trust and rely on change agents to make ethical and sound decisions. And change agents are those people who are more concerned about others than they are about themselves. We all can make a difference, but the real question is this: will we? Meaning, will you take that first step and put yourself out there when called to do so? Will you stop complaining about a problem or an injustice and really do something about it? Will you continue to talk about what's wrong with our community? Or will you engage with others to right those wrongs? More than anything, will you allow fear to control you? Or will you look upon the one who has all authority and dominion and ask for help to overcome these barriers that you face?
Hey, let's go! Watch out, you're a black man! You're a black We're not here
You need to
It's the only place they can catch it. It's the only place they can catch it. And that's what the touchdown in the actual fight.
Sweet Lord.
of the consequences you and I face when called upon to give an accounting of our lives, especially when the only response we can give is a shrug, or the hanging of our head in shame, or knowing that we could have done more in this life, but we chose not to. This evening I want to talk to you about 3 women. One of them is relatively well known, and the others are somewhat not known, but I would best describe them as hidden figures. I think they all illustrate how one person can make a difference. A book was published in October of 2018 entitled Invisible, the forgotten story of a black woman lawyer who took down America's most powerful mobster. The book is a biography about a black woman prosecutor named Eunice Carter. Anyone heard of Eunice Carter? Neither did I until her grandson, Stephen Carter, wrote the book. It was 1936 in New York City when Eunice was selected to join a team of prosecutors who was trying to dismantle the mob. She was the only woman and the only black person on the team. Thomas Dewey, the special prosecutor for organized crime, selected Eunice. Famous mobster Lucky Luciano, the most powerful mafia leader in the country at that time, was the target. Stephen wrote that they convicted some of the lesser players, but Luciano had proved untouchable. No one would testify against Luciano for fear of being killed. And Eunice had come up with a theory that the mob controlled the prostitution in the city. Eunice was instrumental, and think about this, was the 30s, in organizing a series of police raids of places where prostitution was taking place. And they arrested the Johns and the women. The Johns were booked and released, but the women, after they were booked, were taken to an office building. Eunice was waiting for them in the office building. They were logged and tagged, and being the only woman lawyer on the team, Eunice was able to establish a rapport with these women. She convinced some of these prostitutes to testify and others to give information on how the illegal enterprise worked. For the first time, Luciano was put on trial for running a criminal enterprise. As Stephen writes, in June, to widespread astonishment, the jury convicted Luciano of compulsory prostitution. Now today, we would call it human trafficking. Eunice Carter was a black woman and a lawyer and a graduate of Smith College and the granddaughter of 3 slaves and 1 free woman of color. As dazzlingly unlikely a combination as one could imagine in New York in the 1930s. And without her work, the mafia boss would never have been convicted. Eunice was only 37 years old. When I think of whether or not we can make a difference, I'm also reminded of another woman in an ancient story. A young woman who was orphaned as a child and taken in by a distant relative. Although she was unassuming, one day she received a notification from the king's palace that the king was ordering her to participate in what would nowadays be called a beauty contest. And because she was beautiful, the king decided to make this young woman his bride. The problem was she had a secret. And she was worried that if she shared this secret with her new husband, he would be angry and might do the unthinkable to her. But like most secrets, they have a way of coming out when you least expect it. The distant relative who had taken in this young woman sent her a message saying that he was in trouble. But not only was he in trouble, but the entire community to which he and this young woman came from was also in trouble, and they needed her help. The problem was, if the new queen shared what was happening with the king, her secret would be revealed. So can you imagine? She was very reluctant. Her relative found out about her fear and reluctance to help and sent her a message. And this is what he said. Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows? Perhaps you have come to this royal position for such a time as this. And if you know the story of Queen Esther, then you know that she decided to share the secret of her Jewish ancestry with the king in order to save the Jews from a man named Haman. Not only did she end up saving her own life, but the lives of many others. And in doing so, she changed the course of history. We ask today, can we make a difference? But God is asking us, will you make a difference? Will you love the unlovable? Will you serve those who you despise? Will you reach out to the brokenhearted and provide a sense of comfort? Being a change agent is not easy, and it wasn't meant to be easy. Don't let fear, anger, criticism, or doubt cause you to miss out on one of the greatest gifts life bestows upon us, which is the ability to make a positive difference in the life of others. There's the question of how? Well, how can we make a difference? Is it running for political office? Is it responding to social injustice? Is it acting as a mentor to a child? Maybe it's just being the best version of yourself. Maybe it's being the best mother or the best father to your children. And maybe it's being the best employee to your employer. And if we're so bold, maybe it's being a friend to the friendless, or being kind to that person you just can't stand. There is no limit to how you can make a difference in the lives of others. My third story is about a woman I met 41 years ago. I grew up wanting to be a teacher. But while I was in college, I took a class called the Introduction to the Study of Law. And one day we had a guest speaker by the name of Irma Brown. Irma was a young lawyer who was president of a bar association. And as I watched this woman talk about the passion she had for the law, something inside me changed. Maybe that's happened to you. Someone speaks into your life, or some opportunity comes across your path, and you take it, and the course of your life is changed forever. I didn't know it then, but hearing Irma speak essentially altered the course of my life. Because of her, I decided that instead of teaching, that I wanted to go to law school and be an attorney. Now, the only attorneys I'd ever seen were on television, and they didn't look like me. But here was a black woman, both proud and committed to a profession that she loved. That motivated me to go in a new direction. And if you would have asked Irma, who is now Judge Brown, if on that day she made a difference to anyone in that classroom, she probably would have shrugged. But she had made a difference in my life without even knowing it. I bumped into Judge Irma Brown a few years ago after I got elected to be district attorney, and I told her that story. She was speechless. See, making a difference in the lives of someone doesn't necessarily require that you do a lot. It just requires your willingness to do so. Simple gestures of kindness or humility can alter the lives of one or many people. You never know. God might be calling you at this very moment to make a difference in the lives of others. And you keep telling him no because. Fill in the blank. But let me remind you, just like the story in Esther, you can remain silent and do nothing at this time. But relief and deliverance will arise from another place, and you will have missed that opportunity to do what God has destined you to do. I am so thankful, even on days like today, that I have a chance to make a difference in the lives of others. I am Jackie Lacey, but I'm a wife, a mom, a daughter, a sister, a friend, and yes, even the district attorney of LA County. My message to you is very simple. Just take that first step, and you too can and will make a difference. I want to thank you for your prayers and your hospitality and kindness, and for the opportunity to share these stories with you on our Black History Month. Thank you.